The purpose of this video is to arm you with knowledge and give you specific steps you can actually take to improve your ability to prosper. We live in a time of uncertainty, but there are lessons from previous cycles we can learn from. The step you're taking today is educating yourself. When you understand the rules, you have a better chance of winning a game, and we're talking about your life here. I think we all know that if you put your money in a savings account, it earns interest. Step 1 is to open a savings account. Step 2 is to put money in it. And step 3 is that critically important habit of managing your life so that you save part of every paycheck. So if you've done that, the good news is you've done a lot. What bad news could there be? Well, did you ever think about how much interest it makes? Did you know that most savings accounts have interest rates that change? And people who don't know about investing just accept it. You can manage your money better than that, and it's you who's in charge of managing your money. There's a really well-known parable in the Bible. You probably know the story, but I want to share an idea that you may not have spotted from it. We know that we reap what we sow, we get what we give. There's a parable about three servants who served their master by investing, or not. That text is on the screen. I'm not going to read it, but you should find it in your own Bible and read it from time to time. The servants who invested and earned interest were rewarded by the master. The servant who did nothing but did return it safely was criticized. Here's my point. What the Bible doesn't say here is that it's okay to accept circumstances when you don't know what to do, and it doesn't say accept your lack of knowledge. Okay, it also doesn't say you have to go learn how to invest. But read that very last line. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. It's clear and it's specific. If you don't use well what you're given, there's a direct logical consequence. Now, maximizing your interest income is not always the most important thing. The first thing you need to do is always keep enough money in your checking account so that you never bounce a check. That means you're going to have a little extra money in there that just isn't going to earn anything. Your financial safety starts with giving yourself margin. The second thing is money in savings that earns a little interest, but is quickly accessible when you need it. This is called liquidity. It will earn some interest, but you're not going to tie it up to get a higher rate. So you're always going to have money earning nothing and some money earning something before you can start investing. Time out for terminology. The interest that you earn on your money has other names for the same things. You get a return on investment. You get yield when the money you invest yields more money in return. Some of you in accounting will know that revenue and income are different. Revenue minus expenses equals income. In a discussion of investing, I want you to relax and think of all these words as meaning roughly the same thing. You plant a tree, you get fruit. When you sow, you reap. For our purposes, I want you to get comfortable with yield and return. As a grown-up adult, don't shy away from learning what words mean. Yield or return just means the interest revenue you get from investing. You've heard of ROI. That's return on investment. R is the return you get for making an investment. Now, some of you have never seen investment interest or savings rates above 1% until very recently. This is a historical graph of the federal funds target rate, on which all other rates depend to some degree. This is the rate that's always in the news. When they meet and adjust the rate, the entire economy reacts. What it shows is that it was nearly zero for many years, rising briefly during 2018, 19, and 20, then back to zero, and then has risen sharply in 22 and 23. You may have noticed that the entire U.S. economy reacts largely to changes and to anticipating what this rate will be in the future. In fact, there's a huge part of investing that really needs to understand what the U.S. economy and all the biggest influences in the financial world are thinking. Luckily, this is all very public. We can all see it. We just have to tune in. Hear me on this. There is so much noise in your world, you probably never hear about it. You need to understand that it's up to you and nobody but you. You may not be around people that care about the economy or saving and investing, and this may not be a popular topic. So good for you for doing things like watching this video and taking the initiative to educate yourself. So how do we know what to think about what rates are going to do in the future? One of the basic rules of investing is that you generally get more yield if you take more risk. This makes sense. If you invest your money for a longer time, you want more yield. Why is that? Well, the more time you don't have access to your money, the more risk that you won't get it back. You don't know if rates are going to go up or down tomorrow, much less 1 year or 2 year or 3 years from now. So if you invest in a fixed rate investment for 2 or 3 years, can you see how that's risky? Finance people have a picture to illustrate this. It's called the yield curve, and it looks like this. Now, this is what it looks like under what we call normal circumstances. You go into a bank and you put your money into what is called a CD, a certificate of deposit. It has a fixed length of time that you choose. You can choose a 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 6 month, 9 month, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. You get the idea. And this graph makes sense to you, right? Remember, you also have to be comfortable and certain that you aren't going to need the money for that amount of time. That's another risk. Now, the reality is that the financial world is not always normal. You've probably heard their term for it. This yield curve is inverted. That means we don't get the highest yield for longer maturity dates. We get the highest yield on the short end, in this case, 3 month CDs right now. When you look on the U.S. Treasury's website, you find a table of rates that anyone can use to produce this graph. It changes every day. Keep in mind, the reason the U.S. Treasury is the benchmark for what investments earn is because millions of investors all over the world invest in U.S. Treasuries because they are the safest place to park your money and know that you'll get it back. The interest may change, but this is the investment with the least amount of risk. Does that make sense? Now, you and I don't typically go buy treasuries, but we can put our money in banks and checking accounts and savings accounts, and we can buy CDs. Guess what makes those accounts safe? The federal government. You've heard of the FDIC, which is the guarantee by the U.S. government that backs every bank account that has $250,000 or less in it. Someone could invest in several CDs, $200,000 at several different banks. They earn interest and still stay under that limit at each bank. And you might imagine that smart people invest in CDs that don't mature for 5 or 10 years because that's getting the most amount of interest. Well, right now we have uncertain times. The world evidently doesn't know what to expect 3 months from now, so that's the highest yield you can get right now. It sort of doesn't make sense to invest in CDs that mature longer than that, except when that 3 month CD matures, what interest rates will be available at that future date. That's reinvestment risk. The risk that you have money that was working for you that matures, you get your principal back with the accumulated interest, but now you have the problem of what do you invest that cash in? One strategy is to diversify your reinvestment risk. You can stagger your investment portfolio so that only a little bit is exposed to the rates of any given date in the future. This strategy has a name. It's called laddering. Let's say you thought that are low, but in 3 months rates would go up. Well, you'd want to minimize your money earning low rates. You'd want it to earn something, so you'd buy a CD that pays whatever rates are today to mature in 3 months. That way you could buy another 12-month CD at the higher rates and keep your investment earnings locked in longer. Let's say you thought that rates were going to go down. Well, you'd buy a CD that pays whatever rates are today to mature in 12 months or longer. That way you could lock it in, maximize the amount of time your money earns higher rates. The strategy of laddering, though, is really designed to diversify your risk either way by scheduling when your CDs mature so that one matures every month or every quarter or whatever, and you simply reinvest at whatever the best rate that's available at each time. You can have 12 pieces maturing every month for a year. You could have 24 every month for 2 years, and so on. When one matures, you simply reinvest, going out 1 year, 2 year, or whatever, the next maturity that's open. But when rates are low, you might only buy 1 or 2 year CDs, and when rates are high, you might buy 4 or 5 year CDs, or whatever the longest amount of time you can get. Remember though, this is only for money that you aren't going to need for a long time. You're building wealth. You're creating increasing income by making your money work for you. You're never going to spend this money. The one exception I can think of is buying a separate chunk of your CDs that all mature about the time you're going to want to buy a car. So right now, keeping your money in a savings account that earns 4% is a pretty smart thing to do. In your lifetime, things happen in cycles, and there may be other times when you put your money in a savings account and watch and wait. You get good interest if you know that's the best way to go, but I want you to be prepared for a time when that's not true. There may be times that investing in something else is smarter. There are smart ways to invest in the stock market, but that's only after your checking is solidly safe and you've got adequate liquidity for surprises. Remember, the economy moves in cycles, and what is true today may not be true tomorrow. So start educating yourself, start with the baby steps, start with the safest things, and gradually get better. Now, one caveat is that you must never invest in something that you don't understand, what the risks are and what the assumptions you're making are. You're responsible for the decisions you make. Seek wisdom. Don't let money be your master. You need to be the master of your own money. But jumping into something you're not fully informed on is foolish. Seek out people who have four qualities: knowledge, experience, a willingness to share, and a commitment to biblical values. That means they're looking to honor God in their lives by helping others, genuinely seeking your good. And I hope you honor God in your life by seeking to learn so that you can help others for their good too. I hope this video has been helpful to you by learning how money works, by putting your money to work for you, and by starting to think years ahead into your life. I hope you thrive and prosper. I'd appreciate your comments to help guide my further attempts at creating useful videos. The reason I'm making these videos is because I believe I succeed by helping you succeed. Thanks for watching.